Hello, fifth graders. I'm sure glad that you joined me again today. We're going to continue reading and actually finish Beyond the Horizon today. I'm very interested to see what happens after the ships arrive to the small village, see how the people respond to that. Our enduring understanding is that learners understand that exploration and settlement altered people's views and understandings of the world. So we're going to see how this exploration changed the people who not only discovered these villagers and talked to them, but also how it altered the views of the villagers who were discovered. Our essential question is, how do readers determine multiple themes and main ideas in a text? And today's objective is, I can analyze the relationship between events and how they affect each other. So we're looking at how those events, a lot like yesterday, looking at cause and effect, how events affect people and affect the outcomes for the individuals who are involved in those events. We're going to read pages 56 through 64 today, so please make sure you have your text or you are following along with my text. All right, let me get to page 56 and we'll see what happens.
Captain Booth! Lieutenant Armitage waited on the path for his captain. The men say there is a village not far, and that some villagers ran off in alarm. Shall I have the men prepare arms? We're not looking for a battle, Captain Booth grunted. As a precaution, sir. The Indians might not take kindly to us being on their land. Captain Booth consented. Very well, but only as a precaution. Armitage gave the order. The English continued their march forward from the ships, the path rising up a small hill. At the top the sailors slowed. Below them lay the village, little more than a cluster of feeble huts, and between them and the village gathered a gang of men wielding farming tools. The villagers cried out, rattling their weapons, warning them away. Captain Booth gave the order to halt. Stand fast, men! We must let the Indians know we won't be discouraged, sir, said Armitage. We should march on. I wager they will retreat. And if they don't? Captain Booth asked. With their muskets and swords, the sailors could easily overwhelm the farmers, but that was not what Captain Booth wanted. That's their concern, not ours, said Armitage. We will have the land regardless. He drew his sword, and several of his men did the same. Lower your swords, Captain Booth snarled at the sailors. He looked at the farmers, their chests heaving with alarm, their eyes darting frantically. The farmers would stand their ground, Captain Booth could tell. Captain, we must not show weakness, said Armitage. Let us not be too hasty, Armitage. We will have land, but not like this, Captain Booth ordered. Then there came a call from the crowd of villagers. A voice rose above the clamor. Stop! Captain Booth and Armitage turned as a girl forced her way through from the back of the crowd. She wore a flowing dress, a purple top, and a headscarf. The girl dropped the headscarf, uncovering blonde hair and fair skin. Silence descended upon the path. Captain Booth gulped, his hands rising to his mouth. Sarah? He whispered through his fingers. Hardly daring to say her name. How could it be? Sarah stepped forward. Yes, Father. But you're in England with Aunt Mary. Captain Booth's voice failed as he stared at her clothes, her face, and her short hair. I've been with you all along, closer than you know. Sarah felt tears build up in her eyes as she ran into his arms. Cook's boy? Captain Booth gasped and Sarah nodded. But how have you ended up here? An accident at the docks. Sarah felt for the bump on her head. I was lost, but they saved me. My friends. She gestured to the villagers and said, Please don't harm them or their homes. We must have our trading post, Armitage insisted impatiently. I implore you, said Sarah, somewhere else, not here, not these people. Captain Booth thought for a moment and looked at the crowd. Priya's father and the others stood firm, and behind them near the village walls stood women and children. For the first time, Captain Booth saw families, and saw that there was wood smoke coming from cooking fires, from homes. The captain nodded slowly. My daughter is right, he said. Our work is done for the day, Lieutenant Armitage. Yes, sir, said Armitage, his face red. He grudgingly ordered the men back to the boats. Sarah threw her arms back around her father and squeezed tight. Sarah and her father followed Priya through the village back to her house to say their farewells. Sarah pointed out the clearing where they played gilli danda. She showed him the cakes of dung in neat rows on the walls of the huts, and told how the villagers used them to fuel fires. She described the medicine that Daddy had put on the lump on her head and the kindness that the family had shown her. Daddy was sitting in the shade of the tree with Priya's father, a tub full of milk at her feet. With her hands, she pulled a rope back and forth, spinning a wooden churn. She bade Captain Booth and Sarah to sit with her, and they watched for a bit, listening to the twirling of the churn in Daddy's hands, the gentle sloshing of the milk. Then Priya fetched some cups. It's very pleasant, said Sarah's father, wiping the milk from his lips as he gestured to Daddy that he liked the drink. Dahi kilasi, explained Priya. Dahi kilasi, Captain Booth tried, his voice stumbling over the words. Sarah and the others chuckled, and Captain Booth chuckled with them. Very pleasant indeed, he repeated, gazing around the village. Saying goodbye to Priya was hardest of all. The girls stood together at the village walls, hands lightly touching as Sarah's father left them and walked back over the hill to the waiting boats. Priya had been her rescuer, her companion, the girl who had given her the very clothes off her back. Sarah thanked fate for giving her a chance to repay the debt. Priya's home was safe for the time being. Sarah glanced at the ships in the distance, as if worried they would drift away with the current, and she'd be left behind once more. Priya smiled and pointed at herself and then at Sarah. Dost, she said. Dost. Sarah understood her well enough. Friends, she said. Sarah turned toward the path and took one last look back at her friend before running to the waiting ships, her purple headscarf trailing in the wind. For the first time in a long time, Sarah felt calm. India had turned out to be a revelation in so many ways.
All right, thanks so much for joining me today. We'll have a chance to look a little deeper into the text when we get to our vocabulary and writing time.